From Pennsylvania, Mr. Barletta, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, our national military cemeteries are hallowed ground, and I ask my colleagues to agree and support my bill, H.R. 2490, Bertie's Respect for National Cemeteries Act. On October 15, 1969, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a man named George Emery Seipel shot and killed Bertha Smith, known to everyone as Bertie. Seipel was convicted of the murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. 30 years later, he died in prison. Because he was a military veteran, he was buried in Indiantown Gap National Cemetery in 1999. He was buried there despite a federal law that was passed in 1997. The law said that veterans convicted of federal or state capital crimes are not permitted to be buried in Veterans Affairs National Cemeteries or Arlington National Cemetery. For Bertie Smith's family, this is a heart-wrenching situation that has gone on for 3 decades. Jackie Katz, Bertie's daughter, has called it hell and a horror to live with the fact that George Seipel was memorialized and buried with full military honors. When I first began to look into this issue, it was clear to me that it was as frustrating as it was heartbreaking. Back in 1997, led by our Pennsylvania senators, Congress passed a law that said that veterans found guilty of capital crimes could not be buried in our national veterans cemeteries. At the time, you may remember, the country was still reeling from the Oklahoma City bombing. And veterans everywhere were justifiably appalled that Timothy McVeigh, a military veteran, could be buried with full military honors. Now, McVeigh did not receive that burial, but a major problem we discovered was that the law was not actively enforced for others until 2006. Since then, the VA has relied on the honor system, which requires family members to willingly report their relatives' criminal record. In 2013, Congress once again sought to protect our VA national cemeteries by passing a law to explicitly allow the VA to remove veterans from cemeteries if they had been convicted of a federal or state capital crime. However, this law does not extend to veterans buried between 1997 and 2013, a time period that includes George Emery Seipel. That's why I've introduced Bertie's Respect for National Cemeteries Act. What this law will do is require Veterans Affairs to take every reasonable action to ensure that a veteran is eligible to be buried, including searching public criminal records. It will clarify Congress's original intent by providing Veterans Affairs the explicit authority to remove veterans convicted of capital crimes that were wrongly buried after 1997. And it will specifically provide for the removal of George Emery Seipel from Indiantown Gap National Cemetery. This bill really only reaffirms what Congress intended in the first place, and it enjoys the support of the veterans of foreign wars. There are precedents for the removal of convicted murderers from veterans cemeteries, from Arlington National Cemetery and the VA cemeteries in Michigan and Oregon, to name just a few. Additionally, nothing in the bill would withdraw previous military honors, such as Purple Hearts or medals for valor otherwise earned by the deceased veterans. The discussion of military veterans who have been convicted of murder often raises the issue of mental health treatment and post-traumatic stress disorder. This is no question that PTSD is a real condition affecting many servicemen and women. And I have always stood for funding the evaluation and treatment of those that may be afflicted. That said, those who have been convicted of capital murder by our judicial system have been declared guilty of the worst offense possible, and any mitigating factors would have been considered at trial and sentencing. I don't think it's too much to say that murderers should not be buried next to true American heroes. And the memories of victims like Bertie Smith should not be disregarded. I ask my colleagues for their support in saying that real, true honor really means something in our national military cemeteries. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back.